Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Monday Night Must See TV with the Hudson Valley Squares. Not only is it Monday night, not only are the Squares back, but album wars have returned, and they're going to be around for the next couple of episodes. Before we get into tonight's war, let me introduce the cast here, starting from the upper top here. Mr. Chris Canzoneri's in the house. Count Ralphus Ralph Tambor is in the house. We've got Rob Lasante is here. Our center square, once again, is Karen La Preziosa.
Oh, I am? Hello,
yes,
everyone.
you are. Craig Kaminsky's in the house, and Ryan Scow anchors the squares tonight, as always. So, and for those of you, I didn't make it personally, but we had a couple folks here on the team, made it out to Steve Keeler's big anniversary party at Quinn's Pins, the Night of Metal. So I know Ralph, Craig, and Karen were all in attendance along with Steve. So I heard that was a lot of fun.
We had a great time.
It was a lot of fun.
Viewers who made it out that night, hope you had a good time as well. There'll be other events happening at Quinn's Pins almost every week, right? So there's lots of stuff hanging out, going on at the bowling alley there in Middletown, New York. So on to the album wars. So we haven't done album wars here on the show in a long, long time. Figured I'd bring it back for the next few episodes. So today we're going to take a look at 4 mighty debut albums. We're going to pit them all against each other. Everybody on the team is going to vote for them in the order that they like them. I'm going to tally up scores and see which debut album reigns supreme among these 4. The contestants are Dio-Holy Diver, Metallica-Kill Em All, Def Leppard, On Through the Night, and Iron Maiden, Iron Maiden. All mighty in their own right. Maybe not so similar to each other, but I just randomly picked them, right? That could pick any debut albums. There's a lot of great ones, right? But I figured I'd go with these 4. They all, you got 2 British bands and 2 American bands. So we're going to start with Cans. Give us the order of your preference here. What's your number 4 pick out of these 4?
Well, any of these could be number 1 at any time. This was almost impossible for me, but I sat down and listened to all these today, and I only made it through one of them all the way. So, and that's just because of the amount of time I had at work with my headphones in. But you know what? That brought it to number 1. But my number 4 is going to be Holy Diver, which for me, I got to say, I had this stupid fucking thing when I was a kid. The first album I ever got that wasn't a Kiss album was Blizzard of Oz. And I was like, man, I'm Team Ozzy, man. I'm Team Ozzy.
Oh, I was the same way.
And I was like, I can't listen to Heaven and Hell and Dio, and so I was in 6th grade. So I spent like a good, 7, 8 months, I listened to Ozzy, and by the time Holy Diver came out, I didn't buy it right away. I love the album now. There's some fucking great riffs on that album. It's insane. But it's coming in 4th today. And
Coming in 4th.
We're going to do them all in a row right here. So,
yeah.
Okay, number 3, I'm going to go with Def Leppard. Love the album. Probably my favorite album by them. Got some great riffs on that album, too. It's got an instrumental on there. Everybody did that back then. Great album. But, it's coming in 3rd place today. And number 2, Kill 'Em All, which I also love. But I will say back when that first came out, like what was it, 83? My brain didn't go that fast,
I don't think anybody's did.
The first time I heard this, I'm like, what are they doing? Like Phantom Lord? I'm like, I know I'm supposed to like this. And I eventually caught up. I love it now, but it's coming in at number 2 today because I listened to Iron Maiden all the way through. I love this album.
So good.
Family Opera is probably my favorite Maiden song. Prowler's probably my 2nd favorite Maiden song. And I just love how raw and freaking fast it was when you first heard it, and like 3 out of 4 of these albums, they really didn't have a lot of money behind them, and it's like,
no,
there's not a whole bunch of, spooky sounds in the background and production values and whatever, it's a hard hitting album with guitars, drums, and bass and vocals. And the Def Leppard album is the same way. But today, Iron Maiden, number 1, featuring the song Iron Maiden by the band Iron Maiden from the album Iron Maiden. Great album closer. So I'm going with Iron Maiden.
All right. So we got a number 1 for Maiden here. All right. Ralph, over to you.
All right, this first one, an easy one for me, but the other three, just like Han said, either one, you couldn't pick a wrong answer really. But I'm gonna go with Def Leppard, On Through the Night. I haven't listened to this album in full since probably like 1983, and I really forgot it. Like I forgot like how it sounds. It doesn't sound like they sound today for sure. But I listened to it 3 times throughout the 2 weeks that we had time to prepare for this, and it's a really good hard rocking album. I forget how good it was, and it made me listen to High and Dry again just because I haven't listened to this since 93 or 83. So just to see how this held up, and I liked the On Through the Night even better than High and Dry. I always thought High and Dry was my favorite of them. But yeah, I was surprised how good it was. It was a good hard rocking in the vein of like Thin Lizzy, AC/DC, some Deep Purple vibes going on in there. But so yeah, my number 3. This is where it just gets so freaking hard. But I'm gonna have to go with Holy Diver. This is my copy signed by Vivian and Vinny. I got the double the remastered edition one.
Oh yeah, a couple years ago.
Got this 12-inch single for Rainbow in the Dark. Got this cool live album from '83 from back then. But yeah, this is the best sounding album of all of these to me. Like the best production wise. Dio's voice is so powerful, so perfect. The riffs and everything about it is great. I'd give it a 10 out of 10. It's a perfect album. But like I said, this is really hard. So my number 2, I'm gonna have to go Iron Maiden. This is my signed copy by Paul Diano, my original album. I got this cool 12-inch single, Phantom of the Opera, Drifter, Women in Uniform. Is another one, Women in Uniform. Invasion's on this one too, and Phantom of the Opera. Here's a Phantom of the Opera 7-inch, but this one has Bruce Dickinson singing on it, just like this one has Running Free and Sanctuary, but they're both with Bruce Dickinson singing. I got it on cassette, original cassette. I got Sanctuary cassette single.
Wow.
Oh wow.
I haven't seen one of those in a while.
Got this Eddie.
I have an Eddie, right?
The original Eddie.
And then yeah, when he was a punk rocker. And then Phantom of the Opera.
Oh,
Oh wow. Wow.
that's fucking cool.
Yeah,
I
for
forgot.
sure.
The CD too, but so yeah, is that all the Iron Maiden crap? Yep, that's that. And then yeah, so my number 1.
Yeah, right behind you too.
Oh yeah, well I got the picture disc, I got the Holy Diver picture disc, the Iron Maiden picture disc, and I got
Wow.
the Jumping Fire picture disc here. I got a Cliff Burton action figure and some Dio figures hanging up from Holy Diver. So yeah, fucking Metallica. This album just completely ripped my head off when I got it. Here's my original copy.
Ooh.
I even splurged for the big Kill 'Em All box set with the book, and has all this cool stuff in it. It has DVD in there from when they played JB's Rock 3
Yep.
in Middletown. And I bring it up on a show, but I can't remember if it was on here or Rock Fantasy Files. But on the DVD, halfway through the audio stops, and they play the whole concert anyway, but with no audio, which is really weird. But I got this bootleg vinyl that has the whole audio, so I don't understand why they didn't match up the two. Just to,
Wow.
it's weird. The DVD, the music just stops, but you can watch it the rest of the way. But yeah, Kill 'Em All, man. Phantom Lord. When I first heard that, I just couldn't believe what I was listening to. The first song I ever heard was "Jump in the Fire" and "Seek and Destroy," and both of them are real catchy and real easy to get into. So I went out and got the album. When I got the album, everything else was so much heavier and faster than that. But it was one of the first bands that played with that much aggression that I got right away, and I just fell in love with it, and it pretty much changed everything for me. Like after that, I accepted Slayer more and stuff like that, and it just opened up a whole world to me, and it's the most groundbreaking of all of these four, and that's why I picked that as number one.
Cool. Greg.
All right, thanks. We had Ralph, Karen, and I had a spirited debate about this on
That was
a couple
fun.
days
It
ago,
was
and I
really
was
fun.
racking my brain and overthinking this, I'm sure, because going about how I was going to rank these. So I'm just doing them in just personal preference and how many of them have songs on them that I like and everything. So this differs from what I was saying on Saturday. So just throw that all out of your mind.
Oh my God, no way.
Or at least some of it. So my number four, I went with Def Leppard's On Through the Night. And reason being is because there's there's a couple of songs that I don't particularly personally like on there, but with it's a well-recorded album on a major label with Tom Allom. So comparing that with the other new wave of British heavy metal albums at the same time, they being a bunch of young kids, it sounds like a really professional album that kind of belies their age a little bit when you compare it with Iron Maiden and Tigers of Pantang and Saxon, albums that came out around the same time. They sounded like they had their act together a little bit more than those guys did. But great album though. Rock Brigade, Hello America, It Could Be You, Rocks Off Wasted. A lot of really catchy songs on that I quite enjoy. My number three, I'm going with Iron Maiden, and this is the '98 reissue with the artwork that I don't like, and it actually has the preferred in the inside, but it has a different picture on this. And reason being, there's one song in this that I don't like. It's Strange World. I never liked it, never will. I hate it. But I do like the rest of the album. Obviously, I really enjoy. But I like some of the live versions of the songs better than the studio versions with Paul singing them. But regardless, Sanctuary, Remember Tomorrow, Prowler, I love. Charlotte the Harlot's a lot of fun. Just a great album, and really obviously a springboard for them going forward, that good things were to come from them in subsequent years. My number two, I went with Metallica's Kill 'Em All. This was like the third one that I had listened to by them at the time. I was not aware of Metallica in 1983. I did not jump on board with them until, I don't know, maybe 86 or so, or maybe 85. I remember one of my local radio stations used to sometimes play Fade to Black, and that was probably the first song that I had ever heard from them. I had gotten Master of Puppets, I think, when it was pretty new, and then eventually went backwards at the time. So Kill 'Em All was probably the third one that I heard at the time from them. But still a great album, holds up today really well. The playing and the performances are good. We like to kind of dump on Metallica now, but at least with what they became years and years and years later. But it's a raw, crushing, heavy album. I mean, Phantom Lord, Seek and Destroy, Motor Breath, The Four Horsemen, Hit the Lights. I mean, great songs, and it's still fun to listen to today. And so obviously that leaves for me number one. I went with Dio's Holy Diver. Stand Up and Shout is one of my favorite album openers of all time. It's definitely a top 5 Dio song for me. And even though it's his debut, it's like his 11th album that he had recorded at the time. And he was over 40, when this album first came out. So he was well versed in recording and singing and knew what he wanted to get out of his band. And he got the total mileage out of them. Besides Stand Up and Shout, Caught in the Middle, Gypsy, Shame on the Night. What a great album closer. My least favorite song is probably the most well-known song, and would be Rainbow in the Dark, but I still like hearing that. But it is probably my least favorite of the 9 on the album. But I love that album, and it's one of probably my favorite from Dio, where it's the albums that never quite topped a debut. I think we had that topic some time ago. Do you want me to read Chris's
Yes.
picks? Allo's. Chris Allo's picks were number 4, Def Leppard. Number 3, he went with Metallica. Number 2 was Iron Maiden. And number 1, he also went with Dio.
Cool. Awesome. Karen.
All right. The only thing that was clear to me for a long time was number 4. It was number 4. And that's On Through the Night. Haven't heard that record in a long time. It's pretty good. It's good. It's a good rockin' album, like Ralph said. It's definitely enjoyable. Will I put it on again anytime soon? I don't think so. But it's not that I don't like it. It's just there's so many other good things. And honestly, it didn't really miss it that much. Third, excuse me, is Dio. I really love Stand Up and Shout. Like you said, Craig, it's a great opener. I love Caught in the Middle. It's a great song. I find that it's, to me, I'm a lot like you, Chris. I was very team Ozzy, you know what I mean? And I didn't really listen to Dio for a really long time. And what I did hear was a little corny to me, like Rainbow in the Dark was like, all right, whatever, man. It just sounded, chintzy to me. And I got on to Dio later on. So I like that album a lot. It's good. There's a few clunkers on it for me, but so that's number 3. And 1 and 2 was the real battle. And I'm gonna have to say number 2 is Kill 'Em All. What a great record, though. I love it. It's the best. I heard that album and I needed more extreme music right from that. Everything else was like, it paled in comparison. This is fast. This is, it was so good. Four Horsemen is one of my favorite songs ever. It really opened the doors to underground music for me. And I'll always be grateful for that. Yeah, Metallica gets dumped on a lot, but you cannot take Kill 'Em All away from them. That's for sure. And number 1 is Iron Maiden. Like our friend said, Ralph and Craig, without Maiden, no Metallica. And there's not a bad song. I don't care what you say, Craig. There's not a bad song on that album. It's a great record. I love Paul Di'Anno's voice. It's like, yeah, it's limited, but I like that. And it's still a little rough. The record is like a little dirty, not the best produced. And I like that. I don't like it so polished. It just sounds more raw and I don't know, more to me. So those are my picks.
More.
Yeah.
Extra. We know what you're talking about.
I always thought too, when Bruce would sing the Paul songs, that he doesn't have the gravitas that Paul does, because he's not as believable. When I hear Bruce sing songs like Wrathchild or Prowler or something like that, I can't. Paul is more of the gritty scumbag, amateur guy more than Bruce is, and so I don't think he carries it as well. I prefer to hear Paul sing the Paul songs and Bruce do his own stuff. Just like I think it would sound silly if Paul sang songs about fencing in World War II and things like that.
And Greek mythology, I know.
Yeah.
I always saw Paul Di'Anno as kind of like the pub rock singer.
Absolutely.
Kind of was good at it. He was really good.
And he does a little bit of crooning on that album, and I'm not sure that Bruce can do that.
Well,
I don't know if Bruce could hold himself back and
Strange
sing
World is an example,
Yeah.
Or Prodigal Son on Killers. He really can sing.
Strange
very
World
well.
is a very mellow song.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't get heavy at all. It's going to keep it all the way through.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, could Bruce do that? Could Bruce show that much restraint? I don't know.
On his solo albums, he did a little more. Not really with Maiden. Yeah, Maiden was way more bombastic at all times.
Bombastic. That's a good word.
That's a good word.
Yeah, I always get the idea. Paul's the one who actually went and saw Charlotte the Harlot. Bruce never.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
he sang
This
about
one's
trying to
dirty
save
like
her.
that.
His song about her was like trying to get her out of it. Paul was
Yeah,
paying
yeah.
regular
Paul,
visits.
Paul was a customer, and
Yeah.
you know, Bruce's cat save a hoe.
Yeah.
Taking your life
That's a
and you've
good one,
thrown it
Chris.
away.
I know. All right, where we at? Rob, you're up.
All right, hi. This is going to be. This is funny because there's going to be people in the comments that are going to going after some of us. I know that for some of
Oh,
these
yeah.
picks.
Mhm.
I could just tell. So for me, my number 4. Let's see if this works now. Wait, why didn't it work? Hold on.
George Lemieux gonna be proud of you if you get this going.
It's not
Drum
working.
roll, please.
Why isn't it working? Son of a.
George Lemay is not going to be proud of you.
All right, go to somebody
Wow.
else. Let me see if I can figure out. Go to somebody else.
All right, we'll move over to Ryan then. Ryan.
All right, so let's see if I remember correctly. The most shit I ever got on this show, was going back a ways, was when I one day out of nowhere just announced my dislike for Pyromania by Def Leppard. And it's like it's like people caught me kicking puppies. There was a lot of pitchforks and torches, and the townspeople were upset. So I'm not really, and I've seen them with you, Pete, actually in Pennsylvania a couple of years ago. I'm not really a Def Leppard fan. I had On Through the Night, and I actually sold it, and I hadn't heard it in a while. And I remember really just not having a high opinion of it. And so I went back to this, and I was listening to it for this show, and a couple things stood out. It is my number 4 pick, is On Through the Night. Some of the riffs on that, like you could tell, like bands like Metallica were influenced by that, because obviously the Metallica were, Lars, James were big into a lot of the new wave bands. And a lot of the licks on that album, like you could tell, like, sped up much faster, but the influence made its way to Kill 'Em All a couple of years later. So I still am not, like Karen said, it's a fine album. It's totally listenable. I think it's their only album where they were really a metal band. And even there, it was kind of like you could see like songs like Hello America, like they were already pushing in the direction of being softer and mellower. When they had Pete Willis, I mean, that's really the only era that I think is worth talking about from them. But some songs like Answer to the Master, like that's a heavy riff. Wasted, that's heavy. And it's just, I like my new wave of British heavy metal a little nastier, a little rawer, but it's not a bad, it's better than I remember. I'll say that. It's definitely better than I remember. I was prepared to come on, when you first announced this, I was prepared to come on here and just trash the shit out of it. Like really fucking like, take the torch to them and listen to it. I'm like, do I want to rebuy the album again? No. But not so bad. Let's see, my number 3, I am going with, and since I can't hold up a copy because I sold it. My number 3, I'm going with Kill 'Em All. And these 3 albums, the next 3 they're all perfect albums. There's not a bad song on any of them for me. And the only reason, this is just personal preference, the only reason I'm putting this at number 3 instead of higher is 3 reasons. When I got into Metallica, I was already a huge Slayer fan. So to me, they were just, I love those first 4 albums, but they were always second fiddle to Slayer. There's just no other way to say it. I got into Slayer first, and they were like my favorite band for many, many years. So it's like, Metallica's awesome, but Slayer's number 1. The second reason is I was always a bigger fan of Ride the Lightning, which is my favorite Metallica album to this day. So, and I actually heard Ride the Lightning first. So going back to this, which I've had for a long time, I still loved it, but it just didn't have that same impact, because Ride the Lightning, it's heavy as shit, like Creeping Death, Fade to Black, the title track. And it has like more of like an emotional weight to it, where this is just like total violence, but still amazing. And the third reason, I'm going to be a little cheap here and say, just over the years, some of these other bands, well, not Def Leppard, but like Maiden and Dio, they've kind of like, they always maintain their integrity and stuff. And I don't want to say it's cheap in the sound, because it can't. The album was 1983, but in my mind, like it's not as good as the other 2 for that reason. If that makes sense, that's a little cheap, but like I said, personal preference, still a perfect album. My number 2 is going to be Holy Diver. Like you guys have said, he did awesome albums with Rainbow. He was recording before Rainbow, going back to Elf. His 2 albums with Sabbath are both, godlike, as good as heavy metal gets. Some of the best stuff he or Sabbath guys ever did. Then he comes out with this, which I think, obviously, no surprise opinions, his best solo album. Jimmy Bain, Appice, Vivian's on here, whose talents would later be wasted in Def Leppard. Different conversation. Yeah, every song on here to me is awesome. This is one of the first albums I ever got when I was starting to get into metal, and it's just been it's been a constant, never leaves the stereo for more than like a week or two here and there. It's always in the stereo. It's at the gym, in the car, on road trips. It's perfect for every occasion, It's just a great fucking album. It sounds great. I always thought the rhythm section, the way it was produced, it just sounds like it's clear but heavy, the way Vinny and Jimmy lock together to kind of back up Vivian and Dio. It just sounds amazing. It's a little raw, not as high budget, but they did with what they got. Basically the money they were given, it came out on top, came out smelling like roses. So awesome album, great cover art, iconic. Murray, his mascot there, great album. But my number one has to be arguably my favorite band ever. And again, same as Craig, I brought out the one with the kind of shitty 1998 reissue cover art, but it does have the original Eddie on the inside there. Yeah, to me, the coolest thing about this album is this is such a decisive break with the 70s, because you have all these great 70s bands, which we talk about a lot. But to me, other than the intro to Remember Tomorrow and, of course, Strange World, which is kind of like it doesn't even really sound like an Iron Maiden song, although I fucking love it. The rest of this album, to me, does not sound remotely like a 70s band. It's like they just threw down the torch, they threw down the gauntlet and said, this is what's going on. This is how it's going to be going forward. Either stay up with us or, get, eat our fucking dust, stay behind us. There's no psychedelic really. There's no like fuzzy, none of this stuff that 70s bands are great at. They just totally scorned, nothing in the 70s sounded like fucking Phantom of the Opera, like that opening, the bridge in that song, the solos. It's just a whole new beast. So Ralph said, and you guys are right, that Kill 'Em All was massively influential and like changed the landscape. Again, like there would be no Metallica without these guys. So to me, this album really, really changed the landscape. And there was some other great new wave albums, same year, Wheels of Steel by Saxon, Lightning to the Nations, Angel Witch. But to me, this is like really like, this is the center of the, the circus tent. This holds up everything. This is the main pillar. It's just so iconic. Every song on here is great. The speed metal of Transylvania, like that, there was nothing like that before. Priest was kind of going that direction, but like the speed and like proficiency and like, it was so fucking fast and it was tight as a motherfucker. There's just nothing like it. So I don't know. This is my number one. And I love the production too. I know people trash it, but I think just because with Martin Birch, which came on later, like those albums are like the gold standard. Like you hear how he did like Power Slave and Killers, Number of the Beast. This one's a little raw, but like Karen said, I like that. I think it sounds great. And it is kind of cool to think that they've had a same lineup for so long. They've been so consistent now, other than like adding Janek's leaving, Bruce left, minor changes, but otherwise pretty much since Peace of Mind, Maiden's been pretty fucking consistent. But there's only two people that were on this album that are still in the band, Dave and Steve Harris, different drummer, different guitarist, and different singer. So I know it's always been Steve's baby, so that makes that consistency album to album. As long as Steve's in the band, it's going to be Iron fucking Maiden. But yeah, to me, as soon as it opens up with Prowler, it's like nukes going off. It's so fucking good. This is an album I did not have to listen to like refresh my memory, because Iron Maiden never leaves the stereo, and this album is definitely a constant mainstay. So number one is definitely Iron fucking Maiden by the band Iron fucking Maiden, featuring the song
Iron fucking Maiden.
There we go.
That was a great point, Ryan, what you said about the 70s. Like, it's decisively like, okay, this decade is over and we're moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, I love 70s rock, as do we all, but like that album just opened the door and kicked it in the ass and said, get the fuck out.
Yeah.
You had your decade. It's over.
Right on.
Time for some new shit.
Right
Fuck
on.
off with the slow shit. Here's Phantom of the Opera.
Especially when you compare it to like Saxon's first album, even though that is 79, and it's like there's some weird songs on there before they got their act together with album number 2 and so on.
Yeah. And like even like Accept, like the first album's kind of, and then like, you get once by the time you get to like Restless and Wild, like, Fast as a Shark, but it took them a while to kind of get there. Like some of those bands, it took a while. Like Maiden, just right out the gate with Prowler, it's like, it's like kicking in the saloon doors in an old Western, everybody stops and there's like, oh shit, Eddie's there with,
I always equate that with, Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin died so these bands could be born. Like that was
Pretty much
Sacrificial Lamb, yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, with that, for those of you watching at home keeping score, Iron Maiden just went into the lead with that. So I'll turn it over to Rob.
All right. So let's see if this thing works now. There we go.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know what happened.
He did it, George. He did it, George.
George. Thank you, George. I got a little lesson from George over the weekend. Anyway, number 4 for me is going to be obviously Def Leppard. For me, this album, 1980, came out. I didn't know who Def Leppard was until I went to see them open up for AC/DC on the Back in Black tour at the Palladium in New York City.
Wow.
And they were, like Craig said, they were young kids. They were probably like 15, 16. Pete Willis was like the youngest. And they just, I mean, they blew me away at that time. You know, this album was, I thought it was good. I too think the next album's better personally, but Rock Brigade, Hello America, Wasted was great. That's a great, you know, nice riff on that. Rocks Off, Hello America. I think they opened up with that, if I remember. You know, so I don't like this album as much as the other album, the next 2 albums, but I mean, this was a great album at the time, and it got me into the band. So that's my number 4. Now,
Look
Oh,
at
there you
you.
go.
number
Technology
3.
is your friend.
Now for me, but now Metallica for me, I came late to the party. Now, even though I'm the oldest here on the channel next to Steve, I didn't get into Metallica until later. I think one of you guys said that you got, I think Craig said 85, but that's when I got into them, about 85 or 86 when I heard Ride the Lightning. Then I was a Metallica fan. But this album never really did for me until later, you know, like maybe 5, 6, 7 years later. Then I really got into it. And like somebody else said, you know, Slayer came along, and then obviously this band that I love is my favorite thrash band is Testament. And that was not until late 80s. But yeah, I mean, there's great songs on it. There's no doubt about it. It's a great album. It's one of the classics, although I don't hold it, you know, as high as the next couple. I still think it's a great album. And so Kill 'Em All for me is number 3. Now, this is where it got really hard, as everybody's been saying, the last 2. And I struggled with this all day. I was thinking about it more and more. I listened to the albums again, especially these 2 albums today. I listened to them twice each. But I got to go with Maiden as my number 2. And the reason I'm going to go with number 2, obviously you know what number 1 is, but number 2 is because I was never a big Paul Di'Anno fan. Yes, I said it. I'm not the biggest Paul. I love singers. That's why I love Dio, Halford, Tate, all those guys that can actually sing. Now, I agree with everybody saying that this is more of a hardcore kind of sound at the time. And I saw them live. Believe it or not, I saw Paul Di'Anno live, and I wasn't thrilled. Wasn't thrilled with the guy live. I know he had his struggles and stuff, but this album itself, I'm looking at every song on here. There's not one bad song for me on this album. It's a classic. I mean, I do say, I will agree with you. I prefer listening to Paul sing these songs than Bruce. I think Bruce sings his songs perfectly, but let Paul sing these songs. You know, if I'm going to listen to this is what I listen to. You know, I'll listen to this album or Killers, you know, and those are my albums that I listen to when I want to hear Paul, you know, with them. And I mean, Raw, as everybody was saying, and you really, you know, they were, you could tell they were hungry. They were hungry at this time. You know, now it seems like I might get shit for this, but it feels like the last few albums are just putting out albums. I wish sometimes they would go back to the beginning like this, you know, shorter songs, and maybe, you know, you don't have to have a 15-minute epic, you know, and just kick some ass. But that's how I feel sometimes. So that's my number 2. And of course, number 1 we know is the master, Dio. This album for me, 1983. I remember this coming out, and I've already been a Dio fan from Rainbow days. I love, you know, Rainbow, and I love Dio, and I mean, every song on here I like. The only song I don't really like, and I was humming before, was Rainbow in the Dark. I just got tired of
Yeah.
you know, and then you saw that video 1,000 times a week on MTV when this came out. I don't know if you guys remember, but it was always on MTV. And I was like, you know, I was tired of that. But Stand Up and Shout, Holy Diver, Gypsy,
Yeah.
Caught in the Middle. I mean, Don't Talk to
Caught in the Middle.
Strangers, like one of my all-time favorite songs from Dio. I just love that song. And you know, I mean, it's a classic. It's a classic. You know, Dio's, you can't go wrong. And Vinny's drumming, and not Vinny's, and Vinny and Vivian's playing. In fact, I was listening to some of the solos again today. Man, it's been a while since I listened to this album. I haven't listened to this album in about a year and a half, maybe. I mean, I'm not like, you know, I know Ryan said he listens to a lot, and I listen to a lot of other Dio stuff, but holy crap, man, Vivian could play. You know, I understand why Bush loves him so much, you know. So anyway, it's funny because when I think it was Craig was giving out Chris's picks, Chris has the same picks I do. Exactly the same thing. I was like laughing at myself. Like, uh-oh. So is it a tie or what? What is it, Pete?
It is a dead heat now. So we've got
that's
You're the
okay.
tiebreaker, Pete.
No pressure.
and I got Butch's picks too. So I'm going to read Butch's
Oh.
first. So Butch has as his number 1 Iron Maiden. He's got Dio at number 2. He's got Def Leppard at number 3 and Metallica at 4. So before my picks, Iron Maiden is ahead 4 votes to 3 in front of Dio. My number 4 is On Through the Night. Good album, really good debut. Actually, I like High and Dry a little better, but it's like I think Ralph said, it's just a really good hard rock album.
Yeah.
Good riffs on here, good tight solos. It's good tight hard rock album. But something's got to go at number 4. That was easy. Now these 3, really difficult, really difficult. Splitting hairs here. But I'm going to go with Kill 'Em All at number 3.
Oh.
I happen to like Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets a little bit better than this, but this is great. What I really like about this album, and they never quite did another album like this again. Maybe that's the Dave Mustaine influence on this album, but fast, furious songs, great guitar solos from Kirk Hammett. When was the last time you said there were tons of great Kirk Hammett guitar solos on an album, right? On this, for sure. And there's just some early Piss and Vinegar classics on here. You know, freaking Seek and Destroy is so great. Jump in the Fire, Motor Breath, Hit the Lights, Four Horsemen. I mean, it's a great album. It's a great album. Number 2 is Iron Maiden for me. You guys have said it all. This is a great record. Really great. I prefer Killers by a little bit, but this is where it all started. This is still great early raw Iron Maiden. It's that little bit of a punk influence. It's speedy. It's epic. It's great stuff. Love the musicality of it. I mean, how tight that band was right out of the gate. And I think Paul Di'Anno's vocals are perfect on those first 2 albums. I don't know if he was ever going to be the long-term singer for Maiden, but I think to get them started in their career, he was the right guy. And number 1, obviously, is Dio. I love Ronnie. I love this album. To me, this was the perfect album for him to come out with after Mob Rules. And I remember how devastated I was when he left Black Sabbath, when him and Vinny left Black Sabbath. And then this came out not long afterwards. And I'm like, oh, all is okay in the world. We got Born Again and we got this. I'm no longer upset. Everything's fine, right? So, yeah, great album cover. Vivian rules on this. So many classics on here. I will agree with everybody. My least favorite song on here is Rainbow in the Dark. Everything, and it's a great song, but everything else is better in my opinion. So, and the title track is one of my favorite Dio songs of all time. So, that being said, we have a tie, but we're going to do a tiebreaker. So we got Dio and Maiden both have 4 votes each for number 1. So we have to go to see who got the most number 2 second place votes, and that would be Iron Maiden. So the winner, Iron Maiden, self-titled, wins.
Iron fucking Maiden.
Iron
That's
Maiden
right.
narrowly beats out, and it's on. They only Maiden only beats out Dio by 2 points, so it was pretty close. But your winner,
Okay.
right there.
I'm
Eddie
telling you,
wins.
It was
Eddie
tough.
wins.
Eddie wins.
Eddie wins.
You know, it's funny.
Eddie beats what's his name again? I forget what
Murray.
Murray.
Murray. That's right. Yeah, Eddie beats Murray in this particular battle. So
You know what's funny? Hey Pete, that album, the Killer, the first Maiden album, I bought that on just seeing it in the store at a record store, my local record store where I was living up in Hastings on the Hudson, and I just remember buying it and just saying, "I'm going to try this out and see what this."
if you're a metal fan, how could you resist?
Scary,
that
it
album?
was
I just thought it was badass. I love
Mhm.
the, you know, I love the what do you call it? The logo and everything. I was just
Oh,
like,
yeah,
it's
everything
got to
about
be
it.
heavy. I'm saying to myself, it's got to be rock, right?
I think for me, I don't remember seeing that in the record stores, but I remember seeing an advertisement for Killers in like Hit Parader or
Yeah,
Circus or
probably,
Clean
yeah.
magazine, and I was like, "Wow, look at that!" I
Mm.
went out to Record World, Chris, in the Galleria, or the
Yeah.
and I bought it immediately. Like I was like, I brought it home, and I was like, "This is fucking great, man." That was that. That was that.
Well,
Then I went and got the first time.
Insane. I mean, when we were kids and you saw, I mean, like there was movement in that art. You know, it's like he just hit somebody with that fucking hatchet and there's blood on it. And I'm you know, little kid, I'm like, eek, I better buy that.
Yeah.
Gotta have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Gotta
know
have
it.
it.
Pissed
It's
my
funny.
mother off immensely when I brought that home.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well,
You know,
How could you have such good
album
taste?
cover art was a big influencer on what you would buy. I
Oh,
occasionally see
absolutely.
like comments from people on the channel, the viewers who are like, "Oh, you guys put too much stock in cover art. Doesn't really mean anything." I'm like, "Nah, I'd argue that it does a lot of times, especially back
Because
in
they didn't grow up when we did.
yeah, you know, it's
When
like
you,
know what,
when you
though?
wouldn't hear it, yeah, when you wouldn't hear it on the radio, and you'd be lucky to see a video
Yeah, you didn't see
by
Iron-
some of these bands. I
Yeah.
mean, so it's
I think it still
That's
matters
what
because
happens.
there's you can hear stuff, but now there's like 8 zillion bands. So
Yeah.
if I have like 8,000 new albums, like going past me, I'm gonna lean towards ones where I'm like, wow, that's really cool art. Or if I see an album that the art kind of sucks, maybe it is a good album, but I then definitely lean towards albums where have really like cool art.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
on the internet. I'll like, oh, let me check that out.
Same thing
Oh,
with
same.
shirts.
It still
you know,
applies.
Ryan?
oh
Same
yeah,
thing with shirts. You
yeah.
saw somebody with a shirt, and you go, "Oh wow, I'm gonna check out that band. That looks cool." You know?
Yeah. It definitely still applies. You can hear it easily now. Like, let me go check on YouTube, check it out. But the art's what like catches your eye to begin with. So
I sometimes
Especially when you're a
wonder
little
if
kid,
it
though. When you're a
means.
little kid.
Do you guys think maybe it means a little bit more to people who are into like heavier music, like album over cover art music?
Yeah, I do. I
does.
think so. I think people who like heavier music and punk music, it kind of also is a signal of what direction sound they may be leaning to. But like,
Mhm.
I'll give you an example. When I saw that Black Flag record at Bleecker Bob's, I never saw anything like that before in my life. I had to have it.
Which
Some
one?
ball dude damage.
Oh, Damaged? Yeah, that's got great
I
art.
had to have it. When I saw Hellhammer, scared the crap out of me. I saw it at Record World. I had to have it. It was, who the hell is putting out that album? You know what I mean? I had to have that. It
Crazy
was,
Swiss.
I mean, come on, you see this, you're like, "Holy shit!"
yeah, right.
well, or even
A
also
couple-
even back then,
Priest.
band logos,
And
the way that
logos,
it was
exactly.
written, or like the punk bands like Black Flag, and that the way that it was written, that it was indicative of how it was going to sound. I mean, when you
Right.
see
Right.
bands like this or Saxon and Tigers of Pantang, the way it's written and everything, it's like you kind of, even just seeing that typeface, you have an idea of the type of music that it's going to bring to you.
Yeah, for sure.
Think about Judas Priest. They went with that old English logo in the beginning, but then when they got heavy, they went with that logo.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah, like that iconic like laser like
It
etched
changed
logo.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember in the early 2000s too, there was like a wave of bands like Unearthed and Darkest Hour and Shadows Fall, like these newer, like, oh, it's like a new wave of American bands. And I just always remember seeing like all their artwork. And I just, if you like the band, you like the band, nothing against them. It's not for me, but I always thought the artwork just fucking sucked. It was like from like almost like a history book out of like high school. Like it had this very bland, like monochrome kind of, just there was nothing like Holy Diver or Iron Maiden where it's like, wow, like let me check this album out. It was like all these washed out colors, and I don't know. I'm like, I felt like the art of it was kind of lost on a lot of these bands, So
It
I think
also isn't, I think it looks lazy. like it's lazy.
Mhm.
Do you know
I
what
saw
I'm
I
saying?
saw this on Bandcamp about a month ago, and even before I stopped to listen to any of the music, I was like, I'm gonna buy this because that cover is so fucking badass.
I'll listen to that now because it's got a cool cover. Yeah, I don't think it's shallow at all. I think cool cover definitely lures you in. You know, it's
Yeah.
doing its job.
Exactly. It's
When I was
marketing.
when I was a little kid, it was so important. Like especially even Iron Maiden. And when I first seen those album covers, that's what drew me in. I was a monster kid. I love monster movies and stuff, and this seemed to lure me right into it. I remember the first time I seen Iron Maiden's logo on a Killer shirt. Kid that was older than me was at the bus stop wearing it, and I looked at it and I tried to read it. And I said, "Iron Mexican." I thought it was a X there where the A is, and then he was like, "No, Iron Maiden." I felt like an idiot, you know. And I ended up getting the first 3 albums all at once. But especially when I got into thrash, though, that's when the album covers were really important. Like, because you didn't read about all these bands in magazines, so you kind of went by the album cover, and if it looked really evil and stuff, then you knew what you were kind of getting from the artwork. So it was really important more for the thrash years for me.
Yeah. Right. That's a good idea. That's a
I
good
mean, I
point.
get every time I wear Master of Puppets, Metallica with the, and with the headstones and everything, people just look at like, what is he wearing? I'm
Oh, it's
walking.
such an iconic cover. Yeah, that's
I
such a
know.
great
Yeah,
cover.
but not for everybody. Some people think you're like, out of your mind, which I am, but that's beside the point.
You said it. I wasn't gonna.
And it was always fun, at least as I was a cassette buyer, at least for Metallica, each album was colored different. So you had Kill 'Em All was black, Ride the Lightning was blue, Master of Puppets was like a burgundy. The 598 EP was yellow. And Justice for All had that gray look, so it was kind of fun, like seeing them stacked
And
up.
the Black Album is pure black. Yep.
Pure black, yeah. And
Yeah.
that was it for me.
Right.
Now, I just want to stress that Kill 'Em All was definitely a life changer for me. That album, I guess it depends on where you come in with Metallica, but that one, that changed everything. Everything.
It's definitely kind of interesting, like someone like Scow coming into it years later, and he's already like Slayer. So it's like the groundbreaking part of it, it's a little different for us because it's like, there was there was other bands that were playing extreme music, but they kind of were the one that everybody got to hear first, and then it led you to get into stuff. But it's always bizarre to me to go backwards the way like young kids today, like I see a 15-year-old kid today that loves Cannibal Corpse. I'm like, where's the ladder that led up to that? Like, how do you at 15 love Cannibal Corpse? Like it's like I needed that ladder because when I first heard like Morbid Angel, it didn't register to me. It was too much. And the same thing with a band. Like it was like I needed a few listens. But every now and again, like a band like Scream Bloody Gore, like Scream Bloody Gore, I liked it right away. But a lot of other death metal, it took me a few listens before I get to like really hear it. So it's just bizarre when I see these real young kids that are like just skipped the ladder and went right to the most extreme shit,
Yeah, because they weren't listening when things were coming out as they were coming out, like some of us experience, right?
Like we were
I wasn't a Maiden fan. I probably wouldn't have become a Metallica fan. Like because I love Priest and Maiden and Sabbath, then that made Metallica made more sense,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Chris,
and Metallica did open the doors for listening. For at least it made
a lot of people. Yeah.
Looking that like I didn't know what Slayer sounded like until I heard Metallica first, or bands later on like Exodus or Testament and that, and it was kind of like, if it's similar to Metallica, well, I like it's heavy bands like that, then maybe I'll like it, and it went from there.
It took me longer to get into Slayer than it did to Metallica. I'll be honest with you. I didn't get
Slayer is more extreme.
Yeah,
at that time,
I just thought it was too
so good.
crazy. But now, I mean, forget it. I love Slayer.
I take Slayer's debut over Kill 'Em All anytime. There was a time when there was a huge debate in the metal underground, like who's better, Slayer or Metallica, and it was always Slayer for me because they were more.
Yeah, I always liked Slayer more. I just looked it up. Like, so Kill 'Em All came out first, but it was only a couple months, right? Like 4 months, maybe.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But they were here in the East Coast first. That made a big difference.
True.
They
I
were
read an
article
article once with Terry King talking about how Metallica was like 16 months ahead of them, as far as recording originals and doing their demos and stuff. But the way it took for bands to get signed back then, Metallica, they ended up coming out close together, but Metallica was like a good 16 months ahead of them. And we did a Rock Fantasy Files episode, and we had the album battle of those two, and I picked Slayer, and I think Slayer ended up winning the album battle.
Yeah, they had Johnny too, bringing him out on the East Coast, which definitely was.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris, Ralph, and Karen, do you guys remember when Metallica played that show? I guess in Port Jervis with Venom and Anvil, I think it was, right? Or was it Raven? I don't even remember.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't Venom.
No.
I don't
Is
know.
Is it Armored Saint?
I don't even
Saint
remember them
on,
playing at Port Jervis.
Yeah, they
I was
played
gonna
a
say-
show in Port Jervis right when Kill 'Em All came out.
Well,
Did
I
you
know
know
they
that?
played in Mount Vernon, New York, in the left bank. I had friends that were at that show, and they wanted me to go, and I was like not into it at that time. It was like, well, I didn't get into thrash, like I said, until a little bit later in the '80s. But Metallica was handing out their freaking cassettes to people.
Johnny
You
and
know?
Marcia booked them everywhere they could, everywhere. I mean, Middletown, what the fuck, I mean, Johnny and Marcia had them covered. It was
They played at
great.
JB's Rock 3, right? Didn't they play?
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
that's
which is
right.
now a
That's what I was
doctor's
talking
office.
about There's that show on DVD. I saw on the box set.
Yeah.
The bootleg album of this is them in Middletown, Hudson Valley. I should have mentioned that Middletown, Hudson Valley
Wow.
show.
Did they ever play the Chance, Metallica?
No.
No. They went from 0 to 60.
Hmm.
No, why are
Yeah,
they
Metallica played at the Port Jervis. Hold on. I just had it, now it disappeared. The State Theater in Port Jervis, New York, January 7th, 1984.
with who? With who?
That's what I'm trying to find out.
I have original poster of that, but I don't think there's a third band on there.
I think it was with Anvil.
It wasn't.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I think it was with Anvil. Let's see if I can get the set list.
The band Oz played with them or something too, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to find like a set list or anything.
Did you go to that, Pete?
No, I didn't go.
I was still in high school and my parents were pretty strict, so I might not have even known about it, so.
Yeah, I remember hearing about it, but I was just like getting introduced to them at the time. I had just heard Kill 'Em All, and I was kind of like, I don't know if I need to go to that. But yeah, I'm trying to see if it has any. Let's see, whatever. Metallica movie theater, Port Jervis, New York. Never saw anything like it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to find out because I know there was a couple really notable bands on that bill.
Overkill, maybe?
Hold on, I got it. Overkill.
Overkill, that sounds familiar. Yeah, I know they played Port Jervis, but I don't know if it was the same gig.
So it was Metallica, Overkill, and Anti, which was Chris Caffrey's band in high school.
Get the hell out of here.
Yep.
Wow.
State Theater, Pike Street, Port Jervis, New York. Yeah.
Wow.
I seen Andy when I was a little kid. I seen Andy play at the college in Middletown with the band Militia. It was like a battle of the bands thing, and the band Militia played. I seen Chris Cafferty's first band.
Yep, that was
Wow.
him and his brother. They both were into. His brother played drums. So yeah, Chris had the pink BC Rich at the time. He had like I think Mockingbird. I think that was his guitar.
Damn, I've seen Chris's band. I didn't even know it.
Yeah, oh yeah. He just moved up here from Mawa or Ramsey. I think he was from originally. He moved up here in my senior year, and him and his brother, his older brother, had a band together, and yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's funny to think too, because Overkill were around real early, but they're like a different universe of they didn't get Feel the Fire out to 85, but a different universe of they had gotten that out contemporary to like Slayer and Metallica. I know they're a big band, but people always say they should be one of the big four.
I agree with you there.
Yeah, the
that
EP.
4-song EP.
But Feel the Fire was by 85, it was like the book was already written. But if they had gotten that out a couple of years earlier,
that was a big album, Phil Fire. Yeah.
Yep. Good
I
one.
think they should be in the
That
big
was my
four.
first
I
Overkill
definitely
album.
do.
I agree. Put out,
Yeah, well, the big four they're looking at in terms of sales and
yeah. So they had gotten it because Anthrax had their album out earlier, so they got their foot in the door.
yeah, for sure. So there you have it, everybody. Iron Maiden, self-titled, is our winner of this album war today. Tune in 2 weeks from today. We will have another 4 albums going up against each other. It'll be just as tough. I will tell you that much. So tune in.
Look at you with Santy.
Rob's like, yeah, I got this new toy.
He's got it going. Yeah.
George, you created a monster.
Don't gotta hold the phone no more up and try to get it in there.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, just
it's-
perfect
it's
display
a
every
good
time.
little tool to use. The only thing that's I don't like about it is like when you use the Prezi app, it makes your everything is backwards.
Everything's backwards.
It kind of sucks, but
It's a bug. So we'll see
Yeah.
if we can get
yeah,
fixed.
Well, if
Hopefully-
if Ralph does it, he's gonna have to go underneath, and because it's gonna cover up half the screen. He's gonna have to go on the low part.
I just pull them out before the episode. I ain't taking
Old-fashioned.
shortcuts.
physical
doing this
props. Physical
You should do
props.
a tour, Ralph. You should do a video tour.
One of these days, right?
You know, people want that. People would love that.
So everybody vote for your favorite. Rank them as you like them down in the comments below. Dio, Maiden, Metallica, and Def Leppard, and we'll see what everybody comes up with down the viewer comments. But our winner here is Iron Maiden, self-titled. Stay tuned 2 weeks for another album war coming up. Till then, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time.
All the
Please
damn time.
subscribe if you haven't already, and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit that like button before you leave. And we'll see you here in 2 weeks on the Hudson Valley Squares. For Chris Canzaneri, Count Ralphus himself, Rob Lasante, Karen LaPreziosa, Craig Kaminsky, and what did Ryan? What do you call and when you do the big tug of war with the big rope? What's the guy who was all the way at the end?
The anchor.
The anchor. The anchor of the Hudson Valley Squares, Mr. Ryan Scott. I've been trying to think of that the whole show.
There you go.
So for everybody else who's on the team who didn't make it tonight, we'll see you all here in 2 weeks on the Hudson Valley Squares. Till then, I'm Pete Pardo. Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.